No one's seen this, but Ryan keeps showing proximity clips, so
you don't want to feel left out?
Well, actually, this wasn't planned, but I had the drive with it on it. These are all the shots, or the more interesting shots that I did. And I just want to demonstrate the fact that everything is kind of half practical, which you'll see, like Josh never hit Todd with a stick and it explodes. That didn't really happen, so I'm just gonna, it's silent, so just enjoy it.
So you gotta narrate.
So this is the foot coming off. Here's all the, and the thing you're gonna notice is these aren't really that crazy. So we got a stick. Josh is only swinging a nub. This one's gonna be kind of hard to see, but we didn't really throw a rock at him. And then this one actually is probably the best example. Let me pause it on there. This was actually a picture of the shackle. I almost called it an anklet.
Sure, why not?
And this is probably the easiest example to show of just mixing practical with digital. Because there's just a picture. I made squares, and then in After Effects, I just did that, added some shaking to it, and then you're like, oh, it's real. At least I hope so. So I'm gonna, what I want to do is I want to start from the simplest setup to the more difficult. So we have this thing that Ryan kept talking about. So it's just Josh. And I'm just gonna add a muzzle flash. So I actually want to go back to the question someone asked before about working in a higher bit depth. It's no benefit to your actual footage that's in 8-bit, but in this case, because I'm adding stuff on top of it, there is going to be a benefit. So basically, there's no benefit to the footage, but to everything else, there will be. So I'm just going to go ahead and add muzzle flash. And I'm just going to line it up to the frame that it's on the marker. And I see a lot of this. People are like, there we go. Just going to press play, got my muzzle flash, looks real. Which maybe that time it does, but it doesn't. Now the whole thing is I work linearly, which you'll see this, and working linearly, especially if you're doing compositing and effects or anything like that, work this way. If someone tells you not to, don't talk to them because they don't know what they're talking about. Always work linear. And the best way to explain it is that it replicates the way that real life works. So I'm gonna go ahead and add. And you'll see that you're going to get some more information in there, okay? And what it does is it's just adding light on top. I don't want to get into the color science part of it, but just always work linearly and always put yourself into a color space, which Ryan went over before. You have all these color space like Rec 709. But I'm working in RGB because this was seen on YouTube, so it was going to be an 8-bit after, or anyways. So the first thing I want to do is I'm actually going to shut that off. And I think I'm just going to do one lens flare or muzzle flash, same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and do an adjustment layer. And I'm just really going to blast this thing out kind of and just over exaggerate everything. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go ahead and add a radial blur. Okay, now an adjustment layer only affects anything that's under it, so that's how it works. So you could add any effect on there. Let me just shut this off. Now the whole thing about selling an actual effect is that you want it to, actually the whole point of visual effects is you want to blend the effects into the real world and not the other way around. So like this, it doesn't look real right now because our edge is too harsh. We'll start to blur it out. And all this is doing is it's adding like a punch to the air around it. So if you've seen an explosion in super slow motion, you'll see this big pulse from the air compression, and it will act as a lens. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make this one frame. So you're just gonna see, boom. And it's subtle, but it's still adding something. We'll go in, and guess what? Even with this guy, not that guy, but this one, I'm going to add the same thing. Maybe lower that. Just going to preview it. Now, Ryan already touched on it about adding practical stuff, because you have the smoke, but you're going to notice something. Do you see how the smoke in this area, how it's not sticking? So what's cool is you're going to kind of do a fake track. I'm actually just going to shut the layer off so I could see. And now I'm moving its pivot point. And right here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keyframe until it's done. Where's page down? And I actually have to turn it on, sorry. Let me go back. So this is moving. From the muzzle flash? Yeah, this is from the muzzle flash. It's its pivot point. And this isn't anything crazy. This is just go frame by frame. Go here. Go there. This is cooler than editing. I'm just saying. That's good for now. Now, the only thing is, I only want this thing to affect that first frame, so I'm just gonna keyframe it to the maximum amount on the first frame and then down to 0. And then I'm gonna turn on motion blur, which is always good to have because it's still moving, the camera's moving, so you kind of want to match that. And let me RAM preview. Now do you see how it's kind of sticking with the scene? So it's not floating around. I mean, it doesn't go all the way, but let's turn down the transparency. And let's do 0 there. I mean, it's going outside the bars, but is it doing that on there? Kinda. Oh. But see, it's just little things like that that sell the effect. And the thing with this shot is I had to do, or all of them, I had to do this with every single flare. I keep calling it a flare. Muzzle shot, gunshot thing. Now, it's the same thing. Now there's 2 other things I'm going to do. This is a bright light source, okay? And the thing is, because we're working linearly, and the way light works, I could go to the top, actually go here, I'll go to add, and then I'll actually change the color. Now, somewhere around there. There we go. Now what I could do is I'm just going to shut it off so I can see. We're just going to go around here. I'm doing this super quick, so live with it. All right. And turn this back on. I know that looks real. This is my quick bar thing, so. That's too much feathering. Let me turn this down. Actually, I'm just gonna shut this off. Obviously, you can see there's a lot of playing around. So just kind of want to dial that in, and then I might actually just do the wall. Because I don't want to spend too much time doing this. Where'd it go? Oh well. That's good enough.
That's how we actually work too. Forget it. Good enough.
It illustrates the point. Because I just wanted to run through this guy pretty quickly. So it's one frame, and then that mask is awful, I know. Is it more than one frame? Nope, not that one. I'm not used to a keyboard on a laptop. So you have that gross mask, but basically what I'm doing is it's just adding light to the scene. I'm actually hating it, so I'm gonna shut it off, but you get the point. And this is another reason with shooting smart, like having the light, because I don't know, for some reason in this shot it's not working, but most of the other ones it was just perfect. But what I could do is, just to make this shot even more interesting, to make up for that gross thing, I'm just gonna drown the thing out. So I'm just gonna actually add my favorite thing, which is a lens flare. And I'm just gonna use the default.
That lens flare, is that a plugin in After Effects, or is that like a third-party plugin?
It's a third party. It's from Video Copilot, which they make it also for Nuke, which you could add, or you could do.
It's called optical flares.
Optical flares. Now, as you can see, it can't go brighter than white. So that's what's kind of cool is when you're adding the light, and this is why working linearly is awesome, you're getting how it would actually react. And that's why you'll see later, everything I do is I render out at 32-bit. Now this is obviously too extreme, but
It's a disco gun.
let me just go in. I don't like that flare. We're just gonna do a preset. There we go.
It just comes right out of the gun.
And then first frame. What do you think I should do to it? What
Drop
would you-
intensity.
Yeah. Like right there. Now I'll just play it. Of course, I don't know why it's playing back like that. Actually, yeah, I do. No, I don't. Yeah, I do. Wait,
Did you just argue with yourself?
I did. No, it's in full. There it goes. So it's one frame long, but it's still just adding something to the scene. But the smoke, having it real there and just mixing it in helps so much because now it blends, especially because the stock footage of this guy has its own smoke. Let me turn that back on. There we go.
And you would just do the same thing to each of the 3 shots?
Yep. Like that's what we did for losses. There's every single one I had to go in there and just one by one because each one was different.